Now, governance and coordination, and Carlos, I'm going to come to you with this question along with your one thing. But governance and coordination, that means there's a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different interests that compete. A lot easier said than done. Because is the governance structure in favor of my interest, what I want? And I know you deal with multiple levels of stakeholders, both at BIA, but also I'm sure you've got many different constituents and people you answer to. So how would you respond to that, and what is your one thing?
Well, first let's take a step back and look at this through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I think a lot's been said about that. And I think one of the biggest obstacles of having true equity is having an opportunity to end cycles of poverty. And we've been talking about home ownership, having housing, affordable housing, things of that nature. We don't bridge to that opportunity without water infrastructure. So when I'm hearing concerns here today, and a big reason why we're here is, what can be done to overcome those challenges, it goes back to really a concern about, will a generation of Californians even have an opportunity to live here because of the lack of being able to move projects forward on infrastructure front and ultimately at a housing front. So for us, we talked about CEQA, that CEQA PTSD that you were talking about. I think our members have, with 50% of our projects held up in CEQA litigation, have that empathy there with you. But streamlining, I think, permitting, including CEQA at all levels for multi-benefit runoff and stormwater capture projects, including those creating housing, I think is an important step in addition to CEQA. I would say when you look at some of the legislation horizon that we could emulate, having situations where you're going through that permitting hell you were talking about, when you have one agency saying one thing and then another agency saying another thing, they're contradicting one another, and the applicant is in a no-win situation. Because if you go down conformance here, then you're contradicting. So how do you overcome that? So on a federal front, something to look at, I think, would be HR 872, introduced by Congressman Calvert and 6 other California co-sponsors, including Democrat Representative Jim Costa. It's referred to as a FISH Act, which would consolidate all ESA regulations under U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. So that approach of trying to consolidate interagency, help with streamlining, I think there's some lessons learned on that horizon. We'll see how that legislation moves forward, but the purpose of the bill is to ensure that 2 agencies don't conflict with one another. I think that's a little bit what I'm hearing here. So I think there might be some lessons learned on that legislative front that could be applied to some of the concerns that have been highlighted here. So ultimately, in addition to the CEQA front, the streamlining is, as the mayor had talked about just a few moments ago, it's taking too long to build and costing too much. That was what the mayor just said. He talked about a lot of his efforts, and I think we could learn quite a bit from his approach, what we're talking about today.
Nick, over to you.
I'm going to say resources, and I want to put that into some context, though. I mean, from a local perspective, what I can tell you is that it's resources in the context of deferred maintenance of existing assets and deferred investment in assets that we need. I'm going to tell you all what you already know. Infrastructure, specifically water infrastructure, it ain't sexy. Right? People don't, but here's the thing. We also know that it ain't sexy until it is, until that water pipe bursts, and then or your dam breaks. I'm gonna knock on wood on that one, Sandy. And I was in DC recently where I was explaining that to FEMA, because they have, money for, dam investment that we're trying to go after. They haven't put regulations around it. And, they basically said, well, make your pitch to me about why, this is something that you want us to expend right now. And I was like, well, do you want to come to San Diego or do you not? And of course they wanted to come to San Diego, but it wasn't for that reason. So, but I think I think what we all know is that it's too easy to put off investment in the infrastructure that we need. And sometimes that is a result of political will because it's not flashy, it's not getting the headlines, people don't necessarily see it, so they don't buy into it because unfortunately it's taken for granted. But then the second that it goes wrong, it's gonna cost us more to get it done, and it's going to potentially cause even more damage to our communities. And so, from a local perspective, we have water pipes that burst basically every week in the city of San Diego, and it's because they're old and they're corroded, and we haven't been able to keep up with that type of investment. And so trying to make the point to not only the public, but our elected representatives as they're allocating these resources that really we got to take the time and be intentional about investing in our infrastructure, because if we don't, we're going to end up in some really catastrophic and really dire situations. And so there currently, because of the deferred maintenance that has gone on in San Diego County and in California, I think we face a really big dollar figure in terms of what we need to do to be able to get the assets that we have into the condition that they can continue to service our communities, but then simultaneously build the assets that we know that we need to have a safe and reliable water supply.
And that's really important because every time we talk about infrastructure, we all talk about the new shiny things, but it's the existing things that are corroding, that are breaking, that is actually having an impact. I don't know if you all knew this, but earlier when this event started, the hotel ran out of water. Now, you saw me and my staff smiling because we were screaming on the inside. Luckily, they got it back on, but it's a reminder that, yeah, when that stops, it's real. Then it becomes super real. And it hits home. So to your point about communities, and especially the older communities, disadvantaged communities of color that are impacted, certainly we see that up and down the state. So Matthew, from your perspective on the commission, and you have an interesting role too, because you're not just a commissioner, you're a musician, you're into data, so you have a lot of different lens in which you look at this. So I wonder if you cast your creative lens to this question, what might your answer be and possible approach to that?
Yes, well, I'm an absolute private sector person. I mean, that's where I've spent my life. And then I find myself on the Water Commission. When I realized what a nightmare the Form 700 was going to be, I almost dropped out. But I realized I need to stay the course and I need to be here. And so I'm thinking that government, here we go. How slow is it going to be? How rough is it going to be? Can we work together? And it was probably at least as bad as I thought it was going to be. But I will tell you, what's really been enlightening is how talented of a team that exists within the state of California. There are some unbelievably hardworking, smart, focused, determined people that actually, I believe, have the solutions for us. And we're going to have to thread this. And I think that's where I think we need this cross-jurisdictional alliances or discussions, because I'm just watching things stack up. But when they come and present to us, because one of the things the Water Commission does is we're the repository of public comment for state water. So we hear everything from everyone. And I'll say that the work being done to get NOAA data and tie that in real time, and use technology and metrics to really understand how much water do we really have, how much is down there, how much is coming. Those things are improving quickly. We're sampling the Sierras in many more areas than we were years ago. And because we can't run out. We can't over-release and not have hydro working. So all these things come in, and I'm going to tell you, and everyone in this room knows, this California water system is vast. It's immense, and there's many, many, many people and groups involved. And I think we need to figure out, how do we talk, how do we come together? But I do believe the talent exists, the will exists, and I think coming off of this drought, I've seen unbelievable things happen around conservation, and investments have come to fruition in other areas, even outside of the Water Commission. So I think the timing could be right politically to really move the ball down the field.
That's a very interesting perspective. Government is not for the faint of heart, but yes, amazing talents. Mayor,
It's really important from the cities and the counties and all the agencies that we stop changing the rules and stop empowering employees that they have their own agenda and not being managed. I was a Deputy Public Works Director. Maintenance is the key, just as you said. We are allowing, and let me go back, remember redevelopment. That was part of redevelopment, particularly for poorer communities. It was a vehicle to go in and change people's water lines, correct their sewer lines. Now we're being told you gotta do ADUs. Every time I see one come across my desk, I go, will they have the sewer and water capacity? Nobody's even asking those questions. On top of the layer of everything else that's being developed. Nobody's even looking at that. But when people come into your city hall, we make a point in Fontana, and somebody will be screaming out, not happened to me, to make sure that you know what you need or required to do. So many agencies do not do that. They point to empty desks and say, wait till that guy comes back from vacation, and you'll be able to find out what to do. And don't even try to get the city and the county together, especially when it comes to permitting for restaurants. We're gonna close you down because you had a blank piece of paper behind your sewer line in the toilet and give you a D. That restaurant will not recover from that because they're not thinking economically what that impacts. If somebody's got roaches and rats running around, close them down, but not for technical issues. We've got to work together. People are leaving California in waves. Something we're doing is not right. Why are they leaving and going to other places and not coming back? At some point, the weather's not going to matter. Remember that. They're going to leave and they're not going to come back.
And you know, Micah, we put you there because it's alphabetical order, but this was like, I love how it just perfectly came to you.
Yeah, the
Because
back-
California
elementary
Forward is
school again.
about making California better for all Californians.
Yeah.
But all is not well in California, sounds like. So from your perspective, along with the one thing, I mean, you've heard a lot here. And California Forward is going to come up with initiatives and ideas and strategy, and just based on what you heard, is there hope?
Yeah, of course. It's a great state. I love California. I mean, like, and also being grown up means acknowledging what your problems are, not like running around as if like California is the most amazing place and everything to work on. Like, I'm not gonna name any names, but like some of our elected leaders, it's like, did you graduate from elementary school? Like, yes, in elementary school, you say, oh, I'm the best state. Your state sucks. Like, that's not a grown-up behavior, you know? So let's talk about what we need to fix about California. The organizational chart of California looks like a child threw up on the floor, right? Any area, water, energy, healthcare, you name it, there are overlapping jurisdictions, local government, you know, city not working with the county, not working with the special district, not working with the commission, I mean, like every particular area, and none of them have control over their own domain because we set up these ridiculously adversarial, legalistic systems that like keep them from being able to do their actual jobs. That's not how a grown-up country or state works. There are other places that have governments that aren't insane. And I don't mean like that from an ideological perspective, I mean that from an organizational perspective, right? The organization of California's governments is insane. So we need to be, you know, working on that, and that's one of the things that we work on. But I want to end by making a point about equity. Complexity is the enemy of equity, right? Many people in this room, we're knowledgeable, we have teams of lawyers, we can navigate these ridiculously difficult processes. The person on the street, the low-income communities, the communities of color, they can't begin to even understand the frickin' mess we've created in all these different areas. We can engage with them as much as they want, but it's too difficult for them. It's not democratic, it's not equitable. We need to simplify how we do these things. We need to reform our organization in our state. We just need to let, you know, our regulator regulate a few specific things and not give him overlapping jurisdictions with a bunch of different things, and he also can't do it for 15 years because he's worried he's going to be sued, right? We need to fix that, and we can fix that. Californians are awesome. I love you all. I love our state. It's beautiful, but we've got to like grow up and acknowledge that we have real challenges and work on them together.
So where do you start to? So where do you start to fix California? Like, where do you, what place do you start? Because it's a lot. It sounds great, but where do you start to fix the state?
There, everybody, I mean,
Alf is about to jump off his chair, so don't you worry.
yeah.
I can feel your energy.
Micah,
I see you. I see you.
But I want to say,
Yeah.
have you noticed we're all saying very similar things
Absolutely.
about, and you know, we've started in some ways, and so we've, you know, I point to the State Water Board's Office of Sustainable Communities. It's one place where they do with all the small communities that don't have the resources to even ask for a grant, to how to bring together all the different parts of the State Water Board, you know, safe drinking water, drinking water division, and the, you know, all those different parts. So we've started, or Delta Stewardship Council, that is one where 243 agencies in the Delta have some kind of authority over something. And, you know, Delta Stewardship Council, we're going to create one plan. So that's a start. So we're starting, but we have a long way to go. Look at what's happening right now, this you know, drought to flood, right? We've created flood agencies who don't talk to water supply agencies, who don't talk to sanitation agencies. They're all different. They all have different parts. But we're starting. And we're starting to say, yes, let's divert some water off to the floodplain to recharge the groundwater. We're starting to do that. And you know, but we're going to have to do a lot more to change the structure. But I want to thank you, because I'm hearing all of you saying in different ways, early engagement, or, you know, talking, getting it in one place, one stop permitting, whatever that may be. I'm hearing a lot of good things, so I'm hopeful. I think we're starting. I think, Micah, you got it, and yeah, you know, and Mayor, I just, you know, yeah, I heard it from you too. I mean, I heard it from everybody.
Yeah,
So-
there are a lot of different things. I mean, I started out my day, there's a Community Economic Resilience Fund, which is beginning to, this is economic development, not water, but beginning to bring together all the relevant stakeholders to try to rationalize this mess and come up with a plan to move forward. I think Sigma is another, there are lots of different examples of our beginning to bring people together to work on things rather than, so I totally agree with you.
Well, and you're not offended by what he said about the government of the state?
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're making the right calls. Yeah, those are the challenges of governance when we've spent the last century setting up all these different ones to do different things. And now we're starting to say, okay, now we need to figure out how we work together. You know, I mean, this audience is coming together. I mean, I was on the Met board 30 years ago representing the city of Los Angeles, and we actually, San Diego, and we talked together sometimes, you know, it had good, but at the same time, I was also the little bulldog and I was responsible to go waive preferential rights against San Diego, you know? So we're learning, we're
Well, that's
getting
in the
better.
past. Let's not bring up.
I know.
You got a table right here. You don't want
think of how
company.
far we've come. I mean, this group, Dawn, you know, represents a different kind of Met than there was 30 years ago. So I think we're making progress.
Yes. Well, and I think that's a good place for us to start wrapping up. Time has flown by. I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I hope you had fun. I hope you all had fun and got something out of this. Yeah, okay, good. So we have about 5 minutes left before we have to wrap up. I'm going to ask you very quickly, like 10 seconds or less, if you can commit individually to do one thing in the next 12 months, to address some of this, because we've heard some of the challenges. There's CEQA, there's the permitting process, there's the funding issue, there's dollars and resources that hold a project, there's lack of data, there's a lot that we could fix, and we've outlined just some of it. But as you said, Nick, it's not impossible to make a list of things that work, that don't work, where we can start actually to itemize. So when we talk about reform, whether it's CEQA or anything else that we do, processes, governance, all these things, it sounds big and overwhelming and offensive to some who have built those structures for years and years. But if we can just amend it and slightly tweak it and not hurt everybody's feeling, perhaps we can get forward into this discussion. So I'm saying all this to give you all time to think. I'm stalling for you. So if you use the time wisely, otherwise you were just daydreaming. But really quickly, what is the one thing that you can commit to the next 12 months that when we do this next year, and you're all in the audience, you could say, I did what I said I was going to do a year ago. I'm going to start with you,
All
Micah.
right, real quick, I'm going to zag. Take care of myself.
Oh.
This is really hard work. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't stay in it and get it done.
Take care of yourself. Great. Mayor?
I'm going to learn how to talk softer. I'm really a nice person, but I saw some of the body language. And it's okay, because that's who I am.
That's right.
That's right.
And nothing wrong with being authentic.
Exactly. No, but I think we really need to make sure the people that are trying to do the right thing, we give them the right tools.
Absolutely. Matt?
I think I'd like to get around the state more, meet more of the water system administrators, managers, districts, and learn. I
Great.
want a bigger knowledge base for what we're trying to do.
Okay. Nick?
You don't need to change a thing, Mayor.
That's right.
Advocacy. You can count on me to do advocacy for all the number of different things that we talked about here today. And I do want to go back to the point that you made, June, and I think what Micah said is helpful because I think it's healthy. I think a lot, especially if we go back to the CEQA conversation, to beat a dead horse, you know, there's a lot of laws that get passed in California, a lot of institutions that get passed in California, and once they're passed and put into law, and once the institution is created, we never look at it again. And so when we have conversations about legislation and legislation passed, we have to do a better job about being able to take the look back to say, is it still working 10 years from now? Is it still serving its interests 10 years from now? The whole conversation about CEQA, which you heard united up here, everyone believes in the spirit of CEQA. The question is, from when it was passed to where we are today in 2023, is it having its intended effect? We have to do that a lot more.
Absolutely. Carlos?
Well, we agree there's a crisis on a number of fronts, whether it's water infrastructure or housing. So collaboration and advocacy and telling the story at a state level, regional and local level about potential lost generation of those who would have an opportunity to live here in California, be able to afford to live and be able to have a family here. I worry about my daughter who's 11, my son who's 13. Will I have to visit them out of state? So you'll count on BI Southern California to be here next year for year 2. So congratulations to you. It's an honor to be here and working with leaders like Tom Grable back over here, our immediate past president, BI Southern California, TriPoint, and continuing to work with leaders like them to tell the story in Sacramento of what we need to do. There should be no sacred calves. We need to make even incremental change on things like CEQA and the streamlining we've talked about. We can find that middle ground of collaboration. The incremental change, when we look back, can be significant.
I have a personal mission to help to build trust between the environmental community and the water agency community. So wearing my 2 hats as CEO of Heal the Bay and as chair of the One Water Committee for the Metropolitan Water District, I'm committing to 2 things because I have 2 hats. One is at Heal the Bay, every year we put together One Water Day, and I bring together the general managers of all of the major water agencies that have some touch on water. So Adele is a speaker from Metropolitan Water District, Marty Adams from LADWP, Barbara Romero from LA Sanitation. We have people from County Public Works. It's a really great panel, and we have the conversation about how we're going to work better together. And we've also brought in community-based organizations representing environmental justice communities to also engage with the leaders of our agencies. And the second way that I'm going to do it is I've committed to bringing diverse voices to the One Water Committee at Metropolitan Water District, representing those stakeholders that have concerns about some of the projects that we are doing so that they have a seat at the table and we can talk through those issues and help to, again, build trust to help to hopefully mitigate some of the litigation and expedite the projects that we all want to see move forward.
That's great. Yeah?
I'll also do 2. One is ongoingly continue to educate folks that are involved with infrastructure to inform them and make them aware of what we offer in our apprenticeship programs. It's building, as Carol said, but it's also building capacity and the workforce development. A lot of baby boomers in the construction industry are leaving. We need to entice and we need to attract younger people to come in that realize that our apprenticeship is another 4-year degree, but you don't have debt, you don't pay tuition and fees, you end up with a career with union benefits and a pension plan. and it's a career that'll last and give you six figures as soon as you turn out journey level after 4 or 5 years, you got it there. And we need, as we see all this money, we hear that's coming down, we need to be prepared to have that workforce ready. So I'm more than glad to continue to give tours at one of our apprenticeship training centers here in Orange County and have that dialogue. The second thing is listen and build relationships. One of the best things I think I did was get involved with SURF at the beginning end, because we're dealing with folks that we've been at battles with on infrastructure, but we're in the same room and we're talking, we're checking our guns at the door, we're letting bygones be bygones, and we're having a good
Do I need to
conversation.
pat you down?
Because, yes.
You're giving me flashbacks.
Yes. And no, really, because we have to learn to listen. As a union organizer that got brought up as a Teamsters, 70% listening, 30% talking, and we need to learn to listen to each other and hear what we're at. We're not going to be able to reach resolution and agreements unless we're listening to each other.
Yeah, I think, it was interesting because I got to talk to Sean McGuire earlier this morning, one of the state board members, and I mentioned this idea of trying to get the funds out. And I think we as a water industry, we have to do a better job of making those members aware of what the issues are, and we can do that through the different groups that whether it's CMUA or whatever groups. But I think it's important for individual general managers to kind of go up there and explain what the issues are, because they will listen to you. I mean, the board members will listen to you, and they're the ones that can affect the change that is necessary.
Great. Carol.
Mine's very aligned with Ernesto's. Is basically, I'm going to commit to, and we're doing it already, but we'll do it more, going into our EJ impacted communities, actually recruiting them into our apprenticeship programs so that they get to actually build the infrastructure projects that we're all talking about here today. They will become advocates and allies of these processes, but that will require that everybody in this room commits also to job quality standards on these projects and ensuring that those workers actually are able to bring those things home and raise their families and lift up their communities together. So that's what I'll do.
Sandy.
2 words, be a collaborator and a convener.
I love that. Short and sweet. Eric, can you beat that?
No. I'll try. Modernization. So talk around CEQA of whether it's reform or amending. What I think of it as is modernizing it, taking a law that was from the 70s and bringing it into the 2020s and trying to do the same thing with water rights data, our regulations where we can, and just make it work better for today.
AC.
I would say collaboration, that's the key. I think collaborating and getting federal dollars into this part of the country is important. And if we can demonstrate that we have regional benefits that benefit the entire state, I think will make us a lot more attractive in getting that money. So that collaboration is very important.
Patricia.
I actually was saying convener. The chamber is often a convener to bring different stakeholders, different perspectives together. So definitely want to work on that next year.
We'll be working with you. Al.
So aspirationally, I aspire to create a cohesive water rights and water quality, all working together system, but that's not going to happen. At least in the next 12 months.
At least you're real.
But so what I will commit to is I appreciate Ernesto's listening and dialogue and talking, and also talking frankly. I mean, we're getting a lot of stuff at us right now with all these water rights bills and all these water bills. We're getting a lot of coming at us, but I want to listen. I'm going to work on that 70% listening, and dialogue is what I commit to get that. We're not going to change the world in the next year, but we can start the dialogue.
Well, clearly, and we've done a lot, as it's been said. I mean, all those came before us, all of you out there that are doing this every day. So it's not to say it's been bad. It's just that we have these really mounting challenges. I mean, we say words like, climate change and global warming. I heard a scientist say it's global weirding. And because of that, we just have to do more, and we have to do it faster. So it's not a dig on those and what we're doing now, but how can we move that forward? And it's not an easy answer. That's why we got to have the noise. We got to have this. And when we did this panel, I know it was kind of nutty, but we have to be a little bit bold. Try different things. If it doesn't work, never do the MAGA panel again. If it works, you do it again. And that's just how we learn, by failing and trying and doing it again. And I see board member from Orange County Water District here, Steve Sheldon, in the back of the room, and he and I were having this conversation as we're talking about this whole summit. And he emphasized to me the importance as we do this, whether it's a panel or a discussion or whatever dialogue, it's really critical to make sure we have everyone represented. I know that seems a lot, because on this panel, we don't have every representation. There are a lot of groups that have been left out. There are a lot of perspectives that have been left out. So we got to create a bigger room, a bigger table, and it's going to be messy, it's going to be chaotic. It may not be easy, but I think that's what we have to do. And really, the purpose of this was to hopefully visually to demonstrate that and to show the kind of, even the little bit of agreement that we can reach when you put everybody together and you put them on a little bit of a spotlight, but you can also have fun. And I think that's sometimes what we forget is we're all human beings and we all need a little laughter, we all need a little validation, we all need a little bit of support to make sure that we take care of ourselves, like you said, Mike, the mental, the physical, emotional. And so hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. I really, really want to thank the panelists for putting up with me and giving us such great feedback and ideas and just doing it with such great expertise. And thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. To close us out is no other than Nick.
Really appreciated the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Before I go any further, I do want to thank June and Joel and the Moulton Niguel Water District for putting this together, for bringing us all together today. Round of applause for them. Also to Mayor Villaraigosa for being here and providing with the keynote address. As you know, he's led the way for years advocating for infrastructure investment, and he's doing that now in California. So please, one more round of applause for him. You know, I've had the opportunity to be in the water world for just about 2 years now. And with the support of the mayor of the city of San Diego and our city council, I was appointed to the San Diego County Water Authority in May of 2021 to represent the city. I would just tell you, drinking from a fire hose would probably be an understatement, more like drowning. But, you know, this past October, I was honored to have the opportunity to be elected as the vice chair of the board of directors by my colleagues. And I do want to point out two of them who are here today, our secretary of the board, Frank Hilliker, and my fellow colleague from the city of San Diego, a history maker in her own right, Director Abdullahi, the first Somali represented on the County Water Authority board. Can you give me a round of applause for Director Abdullahi? So I remember when I made this decision to seek the vice chair role, you know, there are a lot of my colleagues who were remarking to me about why I would want to take this step. Why would I want to become in board leadership? And, you know, my reasoning was pretty simple. Because I can see what's possible. I can see what's possible when we work together and when we come together. And for me, that's born out of a recognition that we, particularly in the water world, we have so much more in common than what divides us. That essential need for water, water is life, the desire to best serve our ratepayers, a safe and reliable water supply for each of our jurisdictions, and for the reason that we're all gathered here today, the recognition we need more infrastructure investment to achieve all of these things. And so as we heard repeatedly today, Southern California is really at the tip of the infrastructure spear as our large urban centers drive demand for water as well as long-term solutions. And here's the thing, and forgive me if it's a little provocative, but all of us should act like it. All of us should act with the urgency that we know is necessary. All of us should be taking that urgency and be raising this necessity to our elected and appointed officials and making sure the needs that we have and the dollar figures that we need are on their radars. And all of us should be fighting for what we know is needed for today and our future. And I'm proud to say that the city of San Diego has done that. We've led the way with the largest capital project in our city's history in Pure Water San Diego, which will provide half of San Diego's water supply by 2035. And to make this happen, we had to hunt for every infrastructure dollar from the state and federal government that we could get our hands on. And because of our success in doing so and the investment from our ratepayers, phase 1 of construction of Pure Water is currently underway. We also recognize the leadership and investment made right here by the Orange County Water District and their ratepayers that have played such an important role in our local water supply development, just as our San Diego County Water Authority has done. And none of this has been easy for any of us, especially as we grapple with cost and affordability. It's been a lot of hard work, and it'll continue to be a lot of hard work. But it couldn't have happened without the leadership of the city of San Diego and our sister city and water agency board members, just as it could have not happened in Orange County without a lot of hard work and investment here by your elected officials and your ratepayers. It's that coming together and working together that made it possible. And it's what we're going to need to do when we leave this room as we move forward. We know more has to be done. Other jurisdictions have made the investments necessary to adapt to the extraordinary times we find ourselves in to ensure safe and reliable water supplies, and we know more will need to do the same. We are in an extraordinary times. Historic drought, and Sandy mentioned a sudden cascade of an atmospheric rivers, climate change, the availability of water across the Southwest and along the Colorado River. These are extraordinary times. And these extraordinary times demand certain things. Demands collaboration, demands partnership, demands vision, demands leadership, demands creativity and innovation. It demands moving past historic blockades, red tape, and fights. It demands unburdening ourselves from the notion of what has always been and having that dictate what we do now. That is our challenge in this moment. That is the challenge that we must rise to for the people of today and the generations of tomorrow. And how I know that we can rise to that challenge is because of each of you in this room. From near, far, wherever you are here because you know that we have much more in common than what divides us, and a willingness to come together to work together. 3 counties represented in this room: urban, rural, agricultural. You heard Mayor Villaraigosa talk about the Bay Area and how they've been able to come together. And I would submit to you that one of the things that makes Southern California different is our politics. Politics of the Bay Area is very different than these 3 counties. But here's the thing. We are talking about water. Water shouldn't be political. We know how water is essential. And so we've come together here, and now it's time to continue to be together in the halls of Washington, in the halls of Sacramento, to continue to fight for what it is that we need to move our region forward. So in closing, I want to thank you all for your support in being here today. And thank you for your commitment to working together in the months and years ahead to solve our water supply and infrastructure challenges. We all know that our challenges are great. And as I mentioned, the circumstances we face are truly unprecedented. But I say to us, let's together lead with conviction, let's execute with competence, let's get things done for the people we serve, and let's build a brighter tomorrow for all of us. Thank you all so very much for being here.